Yes, my name is James Warrior, and I was only in two episodes of London's Burning, but I played the character, a firefighter called Simmons. That is a question that I'm not absolutely completely confident about how to answer you because it was about, as far as I can remember, I think we're going back about 35 years. And I don't honestly remember for certain, but I think, you see, I don't know who the casting director was that was on it, but I think what happened was my agent just rang me up and said, "You've been offered a part in two episodes of London's Burning. Would you like to do it?" And I bit his hand off and said, "Yes, absolutely. I'd love to. I'd love to be involved." So that suggests to me that whoever was responsible for the casting must have seen me before, but I honestly, I really don't know. That might be inaccurate information. Now then, as far as the fire station that I was in, I'm not going to be very helpful to you here because I honestly can't remember. In fact, I'm not making a very good job of this interview at the moment because there's an awful lot. Yeah, I mean, that should be a simple and easy enough question for me to answer, but I'm not sure. I don't really know. One thing I would say is my memory is beginning to cloud a bit, with the passage of age. Don't get old. It isn't worth it, I'm telling you. People will try and convince you that with age comes wisdom and all sorts of great things like that. Actually, no, it doesn't. All that comes with age is arthritis and forgetfulness. So, yes, I did have a nickname, and it was a very, very glamorous one. I was called Porky. So it wasn't exactly the kind of nickname that you would necessarily like. But the truth is, I'm a little bit less so now, but I was overweight, so it's a sensible nickname really. But it's hardly one that you might take delight in. Not that I'm aware of. I mean, that was just something that was in the script. I mean, I knew that my name was Simmons, and I knew that my nickname was Porky. And my guess is that when they were looking for the actor to play this particular part, whoever it was that was responsible for casting thought, "Oh, James Warrior, he's a bit overweight. He'd do the job," and that's the way I think I got it. But anyway, be that as it may, I mean, I can't really tell you for certain, but that was the nickname that my character had. I do remember the storyline. I remember it very well. And one of the reasons that I remember it is that it's a really, really important storyline. And if you think of it too, I mean, okay, these two episodes took place maybe 35 years ago, but this is something that's very, very relevant now. It's not a question. Um, Teasing people, which is often called banter, is often actually not banter at all. It's actually bullying. And in particular, as it related to Maddox, it was racial bullying as well, because he was the only, in that watch, he was the only firefighter of colour. And it's such an important aspect to life that racism and bullying, in whatever way, shape, or form it takes place, is just simply not acceptable. And that's one of the things that, in my memory of the those two episodes, was actually really critically important because London's Burning was it was a very, very high quality program. In every episode you saw, there was usually a major incident of some kind, like there could be a huge fire at a warehouse, or there might be something that was not a major incident. It could be the elderly lady whose cat has got stuck up a tree and the firefighters turn up to rescue it, or it could be the rescue of somebody who was, deeply injured in a motorway pileup. So there was usually a major incident, and that would be the main hook on which the story was hung. And it's good, and it's powerful, and it's dramatic. But when you get really good writers, and there were really good writers on London's Burning, without exception, and London Weekend Television, who were the company, I think they were the company that made it. Yeah, they were. And London Weekend, when they've got production values like they had for London's Burning, if you get good writers to do it, you can simultaneously have your drama and your action and a good story, a ripping yarn, if you like, that the viewers will enjoy watching. But if it's well constructed and well written, you can also deal with problems which, if you dealt with them just in isolation, like racial harassment and bullying, they could be... They could begin to sound like, somebody is standing on a soapbox and educating you. But if you're a really good writer and you structure the story well, then you can have your drama, and you can still, at the same time, without being boring and without sounding as though you're preaching, you can discuss really major, important aspects of life and the way people communicate with each other. And in that respect, I mean, although there were only 2 episodes that I was in, and my contribution in those episodes was relatively small, nonetheless, I was very pleased and proud to have been involved in a story which had a storyline like this, because my character of Simmons, he didn't, in a way, I see him. With hindsight, I see him as a rather weak man. He was the kind of person who, he didn't like what was happening. He didn't want to participate in the bullying or the racial harassment, but he didn't have the courage to stand up and stand aside from this and to say to the others, hey, pack it up. You can't treat somebody else like this. Come on, we're part of a team, we're part of a group. He didn't have that kind of courage, but in the end, he did present evidence, as it were, that this had been going on. Because when the incident of Maddox being tied up and practically, or risking very nearly being drowned, when that actually came to a head, Simmons finally kind of stood up and gave evidence about the terrible way in which he'd been treated. And so from that point of view, yes, I do remember the episode well, and I'm really pleased to have been in it, because I mean, in a way, I think I see myself as a kind of superannuated hippie. I mean, my feeling about racism and bullying in general is that, most people will agree with me, unless they're, committed creationists or something. But most people will agree that something like 13 billion years ago, there was a colossal, unimaginable explosion, at the end of which gases eventually turned over 13,000 million years, turned into stars and planets. And on this little Earth, every single person on this Earth, we all actually originated from that one explosion. So we're brothers and we're sisters. Why would you even think about bullying your brothers and your sisters? Why would you think about racial hatred and racial intolerance about somebody who is actually your brother or your sister? That's the reality of it. And it's something that I feel really strongly about, and something that is very topical at the moment, because, I mean, if you unless you live under a stone, nobody can have escaped the fact that there's, institutional racism in the Metropolitan Police. Something's got to be done about it, and done about it now. Anyway, I don't want to go too far away down into these other avenues, because after all, we're talking about London's Burning. But I think what I'm saying about London's Burning in this particular case is that it was beautifully written, and a difficult and important social problem was being dealt with, but it wasn't in any way kind of boring, and it wasn't in any way somebody standing up on a soapbox preaching and wagging his finger at you and telling you how wrong it was to be. It wasn't anything like that. It was included in a drama, and a beautifully presented and wonderful drama. I mean, so yeah. Hey, I've been going on a bit about that. You asked me one fairly simple question, I think, which was, do I remember the storyline? Well, the answer, I've taken ages to say yes, I do, and I think it was a very important storyline too. Question. I mean, wherever you get, I mean, in a nutshell, my feeling is that wherever you get racial abuse, it needs to be dealt with. It needs to be stopped. It has to be stopped. It's pointless. And especially when you think about it, with the emergency services, you've got people like firefighters, you've got ambulance crew, paramedics. It's really important. I mean, incredibly important. Your lives depend on each other. It's really important that you should be a smooth operating, really closely bonded team who can absolutely trust each other. And if one of you, because of being either a woman firefighter, for example, who finds herself the recipient of misogyny, or if you're a person of colour, then you have no reason to expect that the fact that your skin colour is different from other people in that same group and, on the same watch, you should have no reason to think that because your skin colour is different from anybody else's, that somehow that makes you inferior or makes you fair game to be bullied. And I think it's really important to deal with that kind of problem when it arises. I hate it. It makes me angry, and once again, I say that's why I was so pleased to participate in the role that I played in those 2 episodes, because, I mean, basically what the 2 episodes were saying was what people are saying now, 35 years later, is racial abuse is unacceptable. Don't do it, dummy. Listen, the first thing I've got to say about this is that it was great. There are times, it doesn't happen often, and I think it never actually happens out of kind of deliberate malice. But if you turn up as a guest actor, as I was, just doing 2 episodes, but if you turn up in that kind of capacity, in what I would describe as somebody else's series, in other words, you're not one of the regulars. You have a regular cast who everybody gets very familiar with, the audience get very familiar with, and they see, on more or less every episode. Sometimes you can walk in as a guest actor to somebody else's series and just feel that there's an uncomfortable atmosphere. It's as though there's maybe some tension around for reasons that you don't know and you don't understand. And also the regular characters, the regular cast know each other well, and they're very familiar with each other, and they talk to each other in a way which typically they don't talk to you in quite the same way, because they don't know you. They don't know what you like. They don't know anything about you. They don't know if if you like to go out to the pub afterwards and drink some beer when you finish. Well, they don't know anything about you. But I had a strong feeling that in those 2 episodes that I was involved with, I thought, I'm really lucky here. I've walked in to a group of people who get on and who've created a really good relationship with each other, and that makes you feel welcome. And certainly, as far as Sean was concerned, yes, I felt welcome. I didn't feel like an interloper. I didn't feel like one of those people who thinks, oh, I've turned up in some and they don't really like me, and all the people that I did meet when I was doing those 2 episodes, none of them had a chip on their shoulder. All of them were good geezers. What more can I say? No, I wasn't. Or rather, hang on. I'm answering this in a clumsy fashion. What I mean to say is, no, I didn't go out on shouts. I mean, if I had been one of the regular actors in it, then of course I would have. I would have been involved in in a literal physical way, and I would have done the training that many of the other actors did. You had to do in order that you should do the job and make it authentic. I mean, my contribution to these 2 episodes was primarily as somebody who was giving evidence about someone who had been a victim of bullying, and in particular racist bullying, and so no, I didn't play an active role in a firefighting incident. I was there and just seen as somebody who was known to be a firefighter. However, my capacity in these 2 episodes was to explain what had happened, what had gone wrong, and in fact, actually, to clear my character, that is, to clear his conscience, because I think Simmons always felt that he should have come forward much sooner than he did. But that's it, really. No, I didn't participate in active firefighting filming or training. Really? I mean, as far as costume is concerned, I wore what they gave me, which was, I mean, I can see, funnily enough, talking to you now, I can see the main actors from the series in a photograph behind you, which, and that's how I was. I mean, they're in they're not wearing their firefighting gear. I mean, they're wearing their as it were relaxing uniforms, as opposed to they're not wearing breathing apparatus or protective gear. And that's how I was. That's how I was dressed, and as far as makeup was concerned, there wasn't. I mean, there was nobody needed to. Nobody needed to do anything really. I mean, it's just, here's this guy. He's turned up. His name is Porky Simmons, and so I wasn't. There wasn't a big makeup job. It wasn't like I was posing as a great glamorous firefighter. Nothing actually. I was thinking about this the other night, and there is one little story I could tell you, which it didn't take place on set. It took place after we'd finished work one day. Now I wish I could remember the name of the actor, because he was very good company. I wish I could remember the name of the actor that this little story takes place with. All I can tell you for certain is that he was a Scotsman, and we had drunk some beer afterwards, and it was getting on. The evening was getting on, and both of us had to get home. We were running the risk of missing a last train back from Waterloo, and I don't know where he was going, but we decided anyway that in order to make sure that we didn't miss last trains home, that we'd get it from wherever we were. And I can't remember that either. But from wherever we were, we'd get a taxi. And when we came out to try and get a taxi, it was getting on. It was quite late, and taxis were few and far between on the street. And anyway, this guy, this actor, the Scottish actor, he saw one coming and he hailed it. And the taxi driver saw us and pulled over. And just as we were walking out into the road to get it, somebody else, someone we didn't know, nothing to do with us, somebody else came running out from behind and ran up to the taxi and opened the door of it. And both of us, the Scotsman and me, we were seriously, we were incensed. And he said, and he really laid on, like a Glasgow accent. He said, "Hey, pal, if you do that in Glasgow, you'd be carrying your teeth home in your hat." And this guy turned round and he said, Oh, sorry, mate, didn't mean to do that. Don't, mate, it's all right, it's yours. So anyway, the Scottish actor and me, we got into the cab, and I went I got dropped off at Waterloo and he got dropped off wherever he wanted to go. But I just remember the incident as being really good, because when we got into the cab, the Scotsman, he turned to me and he said, I'm not really a hard man at all. He said, but I find down here in London, we've got such a reputation up in Glasgow. All I've got to do is just, put on my Glasgow accent. He said, and they back off. He said, so I'm glad he didn't challenge us. Because the guy who did it, the guy I'm talking about, he wasn't a hard man at all. He wasn't a dangerous man. He was a good guy. He was an actor. But he pulled a good stroke there, because we were just about to lose our taxi if he hadn't done it. But that's the only kind of, I think that's probably the only kind of sort of on-set or just after being on-set story I can think of. Well, even though I'm what I would describe as an ancient crumbly actor now, that's what I'd call myself, I still do a bit. I mean, I can't do the same stuff that I used to do, because I used to be very active, and I played during my 50 years of being an actor. I played a lot of coppers at various different times. Well, there's no such thing as a 76-year-old copper, because, if I had to chase somebody or arrest somebody, I couldn't. I don't do running anymore. That's not part of my style of living. But I still do a bit. Here's a little one. It was, this would be about 18 months, maybe nearly 2 years ago now, but it came out of the blue. And I was really excited by it, because at my age I didn't expect to go to Bollywood. But there I did. My agent rang up one day and said, "You've been offered a job in Mumbai in a Bollywood film. Would you like to go? They just want to take a few pictures of you. Can you do?" Because obviously this had to be done over a distance of 5,000 miles until I actually landed there on set. But so I had to take pictures of myself that they wanted me, because I was playing the part of. Do you remember the great cricket commentator Brian Johnston? Well, they wanted me to be in a film about cricket, and anyway, that's the background to it. So to cut a long story short, I suddenly, at the age of 75, I'm out in Bollywood in a big, and they couldn't. I've always seen myself as just as a working actor, but they couldn't have treated me with more courtesy or more kindness if I had been, I don't know, a major international Hollywood star like Jack Nicholson or someone like that. They looked after me. They gave me everything they possibly could to make me feel comfortable. And also because I finished the job that I was doing about 3 days short of the total contracted period, the director, a man called Kabir Khan, came up to me and he said, "James," he said, you've got 3 days now to kick your heels before your flight back to England. He said, "Do you know what we'd love to do for you if you would like to avail yourself of it?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, we would love to arrange for you to have a car and a driver to take you all over Mumbai, and particularly to Old Bombay." And I said, "Thank you." Can you imagine? It came right out of the blue. And suddenly there I am being chauffeured around Old Bombay, having the most incredible, wonderful time. So, and also the other thing is, God, I'm very long-winded, aren't I, the way I answer your questions? But the other thing is, the other thing that I do now, and I'm sitting in, I've got a little studio, which I'm sitting in at the moment, talking to you, and I record audiobooks and do voiceovers and things. So I can do that without having to, without having to travel anywhere and without having to leave the house. Oh, and by the way, can I just add one thing, please? This is not strictly to do with London's burning, but I feel slightly embarrassed about this. I've recently had some really pretty severe dentistry. and I'm waiting for a denture to be made. So if, as I'm talking to you, my diction sounds absolutely appalling, it's because I haven't got any teeth, or well, I've only got 3 teeth left on the top. And so it's that's my excuse, because if any actors watch this, they'll think, how did he ever get a job? His diction is appalling. So it's because I haven't got any teeth left. So that's my excuse, boys. Well, that's all right, and likewise, if I may, I would like to say thank you, because it was the last thing on my mind was that anybody would want to interview me about London's burning, because my part in uh, it was small, and nonetheless, I loved being in it, and thank you for asking me to do this.